Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 9:02, so we will get started. If you could just give me an affirmation, whether or not you can all hear me and see me just fine, either through the chat. Great. And the answer is yes, this will be recorded. And yes, we will have this posted on the website tomorrow. So excited to welcome all of you to the Louisiana Comeback Launch 3.0. And we can go ahead and advance the slide. So as a quick reminder, just make sure your camera is off and that you're muted to save bandwidth and prevent any connectivity issues. Again, we're excited to welcome you to the 2023-2024 Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan kind of kickoff for this year. And we are going to be sharing the workbook, the approval criteria, and other pertinent information, all of which has been published in the Pandemic Relief Guidance and Resources Library. My name is Danielle Mitchell, and I am with the department, and we are, again, excited to have all of you here with us today. So we'll begin by looking at Louisiana's ESSER allocations. The U.S. Department of Education received 3 rounds of pandemic relief stimulus funds through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, known as ESSER 1, 2, and 3, totaling nearly $200 billion, of which Louisiana received about $4 billion. Of these funds, 90% flowed out directly to our school systems. And then of the state's portion, additional incentive funds were made available to school systems in the Achieve application. School systems were encouraged to build multi-year budgets to maximize the resources through September 30th of 2023 and 2024, respectively. Now, considering that period of availability specifically for ESSER 2 nearing in just a few months, we want to highlight those fund allocations to systems. About $1.1 billion ESSER 2 dollars flowed out to our school systems over the past 3 years. This means that any activity being funded with ESSER 2 must be completed within the period of availability, which ends September 30th of 2023. Most of the ESSER 2 dollars that were part of the formula allocation, while about 4.7% accounts for incentive funds that were flowed out from the state's portion. When we look at the balances for each of those buckets of ESSER 2 funds flowed out to systems as of last week, we do see that systems have spent nearly 83% of their formula dollars. At this rate, we are confident that school systems will obligate these funds timely, and we will continue to monitor and reach out to school systems who have high rates of unspent formula dollars. Unlike the formula portion, we aren't seeing a high rate of spend down with the ESSER 2 incentive funds, which include school choice or the SC, that were flowed out to systems for various initiatives reflected in the middle chart. We did provide an incentive funding summary document to all school systems in May. This detailed the amount per initiative that each school system got. We are asking that school systems indicate any anticipated balance that will not get spent, indicate that to the department by August 4th in EGMS. This way, those incentive funds can be reverted back and redistributed to other priorities to ensure that we are maximizing and optimizing these limited one-time resources. Next, we'll quickly look at an overview of the key activities of the state and the LEAs over the past couple of years. So first, just like all of you, once we receive these dollars, and looked at our data and the needs, we set priorities, and then we launched Louisiana Comeback, really calling systems to coalesce around a few key investments. Additionally, we knew it was important to be transparent with our stakeholders, so we worked on building a dashboard that would pull information from EGMS. To provide more information about our overall critical goals, the priorities and the key objectives that we as the agency are doing, we then were working to create another more robust dashboard, which was released a few months ago. Then if we continue on the timeline, we see this brings us up to where we are now. We have launched successfully the KPI dashboard and continue to review and revise our own budgets, as well as knowing that our school systems are doing the same thing. And we'll announce or recognize our next comeback campuses this fall and then again in 2024. So as a reminder, Louisiana comeback campuses meet very specific criteria. So if we advance this slide, we see that these campuses are indicated by those who increase the students who score mastery and above on the statewide assessment, decrease the percent of students scoring unsatisfactory, and if a high school increase the student ACT scores as compared to 2019, meaning these are campuses that have exceeded their pre-pandemic performance. In 2022, statewide, 41 schools representing 23 systems earned this prestigious honor. This fall, we will once again recognize campuses who also attained this remarkable performance on the spring 2023 assessments compared to 2019. So now we will look at the requirements and commitments LEAs must uphold as recipients of these federal funds. So first, there are federal requirements and regulations, and the federal regulations require that each LEA that receives these funds must develop and submit to the state and make publicly available on their website a plan for how these funds will be used. They must engage in meaningful consultation with their communities and stakeholders, and then periodically review and revise their plan. This is actively done not only in the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan, but of course your achieved budgets in EGMS. The department is also committed to posting those plans on our website for public viewing. Next, Act 458 of the 2023 regular legislative session amended and reenacted prior legislation. And this legislation requires each parish and local education agency to develop an educational plan for supporting budget to provide expanded academic support to students in grades 3 through 8 who failed to achieve mastery on the statewide assessment in reading and or math. And such plan shall be submitted to the department by September 1st for review and approval. And then last are the Louisiana comeback commitments, which really asks school systems to collectively commit their time, energy, and resources towards areas that rapidly increase student achievement. This includes engagement in attendance, recovery and acceleration, and of course, professional learning. So all together, the Academic Recovery Acceleration Plan and the Achieve Budget in EGMS ensure that LEAs are in compliance with all three requirements and commitments. This is an overview of the timeline. So we'll advance to the timeline slide. And we see that earlier this week, we published the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Workbook and Reviewer Guidance, along with this deck in the Pandemic Relief Library. Additionally, we will link a recording of this session by the end of the week and include an FAQ. In a few weeks, our AAA team or the data team will provide data templates to school systems via the FTP. This will contain pertinent information such as attendance, student performance, including literacy screeners, LEAP, ACT, and more. Systems will use that data template to complete the ARAP plan, but there are certainly sections of the plan and data that school systems can use to go ahead and begin working on it now. Plans are due September 1st. However, school systems may submit them as soon as they would like, and the department will begin reviewing those plans as they come in, and then post those to the Louisiana Comeback website. Now we'll look specifically at the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan sections for 23-24. There are 6 sections that make up the plan. First is the needs assessment, which requires LEAs to indicate the data that will be used to address all sections of the plan. The next 3 sections align with the comeback commitments, just like the prior 2 years. Next, we have a section that requires school systems to link and input information related to safety and operations. And then last, we require school systems to describe how they will plan for and invest in cybersecurity and system upgrades. While the overall content is largely the same, there are a few notable key shifts. First, the entire plan this year will be completed and submitted in EGMS. Before a new year application will be available, you must complete the contact information and agree to assurances in EGMS, just like any other application. Secondly, this application is much more streamlined and succinct. We are not requiring long, detailed narrative responses for every section, knowing that our LEAs are largely continuing the great work that they've started. We are requiring narrative responses for a few specific sections. First, if an LEA indicates that they are making significant changes to one of the areas in the prior plans, we do ask that a brief description is provided. Secondly, there is a math refresh section where we are asking all LEAs to indicate how they are implementing math refresh across all of their campuses. And then last, we want to know the school system's plan for investing in and the cybersecurity and system upgrades for their school system. Now we'll look at the criteria for approval. So there are 4 criteria that must be met. First, each section must be completed. Next, the fund sources, whether it's local, state, and or federal, must be identified for each key investments. And it's really the funds that are being invested for the 23-24 year. Third, where applicable, again, a brief description for significant changes should be provided. And then last, that plans are submitted no later than September 1st. Now we'll look quickly at a few key resources that have been mentioned and will be linked here. Also, you can find in the Pandemic Relief Library. That is the workbook, which we will look at momentarily, as well as the reviewer guidance, the checklist. And we will also make note that the 22-23 plans for all of our school systems are posted on the Louisiana Comeback website and would be a good point of reference for our school systems to look at as they're building their 23-24 plans. Here again is information on support that the department will provide over the next month to ensure that all of our school systems achieve an approved plan. Now we'll call out specifically 2 key resources that will be used as school systems complete the plan, again, in EGMS. Very similar to Super App, we provided a workbook that has the exact same questions and response structure as the application in EGMS. This provides a space where school systems can collaborate and enter their information prior to it going into EGMS so that more people can work collectively on completing the plan. So that can be used alongside the reviewer guidance, which all of our reviewers will reference as a checklist as they are looking at these plans. When we look at the workbook, we see the first tab is just an overview of the information that's contained here. This is a view-only Google Sheet, so you would need to download it and make a copy for you and your team. Then, of course, we list the sections, the criteria for approval, and we've linked that reviewer guidance checklist, as well as included the timeline at the bottom. The next 2 tabs indicate the contacts and assurances that must be completed in EGMS before the ARAP plan is able to be actually entered. Then the fourth tab is the needs assessment, where school systems will simply indicate the data that they will use and acknowledge the criteria checklist in terms of identifying data that will meet all sections of this plan. Now we will look at one particular section to look at the structure and the function, which is repeated throughout the rest of the plan. So we'll look at attendance and well-being, and we see there are two key investments on this tab. First is attendance, and the second one is well-being. For attendance, for that key investment, the very first part that will be completed is identifying the fund source. So we've included a drop-down that has the majority of the fund sources that we know our school systems will use. If there's a fund source that isn't listed, it can simply be typed in. Additionally, EGMS will have the functionality for school systems to add rows so that they can enter any additional fund sources if it's more than one. Next, you'll see the question about which evidence-based activities will the LEA invest in using these ESSER 2 and 3 funds. And we ask that they indicate just simply by checking. If there is an activity that they are doing that is not listed, they can simply type that in, and we will show an example of what we're looking for that other line. The next question is around asking if the LEA is going to make significant changes to this particular key investment. When we say significant changes, this would mean something like you're hiring a new position or creating a brand new team or division. You're providing a new professional development or opportunity for educators. You're launching a new initiative or a parent engagement, student find collaborative effort. So if the school system indicates, yes, we are making significant changes to this particular key investment, we then would require that school system to just provide a brief description of that new activity and or initiative. So again, this is the same structure throughout the rest of the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan workbook. I did want to call your attention to two more areas. So if we go to the Recovery and Acceleration tab and scroll down towards the bottom, or I apologize, towards the bottom of the targeted learning, and we look at specifically the math component here, which is the key investment math refresh. And we do see that the LEA, we are requiring the LEA to describe how they will implement math refresh across their sites. So that will be one required area. The next required area is going to be on the data infrastructure tab. So on that data infrastructure tab, we are asking, again, the LEA to describe how it is upgrading and or ensuring proper cybersecurity and system upgrades are being implemented and planned for. So now we can exit and go back to the deck, but we did want to just provide that context. And again, if y'all have any questions, there are support opportunities to join, or you can reach out to us at ldoe.grantshelpdesk@la.gov. Now we're going to look specifically at the criteria or guidance for the narrative responses. So there were two types of responses. First was the other option under the evidence-based activity list. And what we're looking for there is just a brief word or phrase, including the activity. And we do have a character limit because we're not looking for a super long detailed narrative. So for example, if this were under the attendance key investment area and I didn't see something about partnering with local community organizations, then I would simply type this in on the other line. And this is the, detailed enough for us to understand what the activity is. If the LEA indicates there is a significant change for that key investment area, we are looking for a little more detail about what that significant change is. So what is a major thing that the LEA has either stopped or they started, or they're pivoting from, or really shifting from. That is information that we do want to know. So here, for example, this would be a school system who's hired a brand new coordinator to work with very specific schools on implementing attendance awareness and family support and services. And so here we're indicating that they'll work with the schools to optimize dropout early warning systems and facilitate communication with families and students, and that they will also lead a PLC for the school leadership teams. So that would be an example of not only a significant change, but the level of detail that we are looking for so that we get an idea of how is that shift different, or what is the new work that's happening. So with that, we are, again, very grateful for you taking the time to join us today, and we will go ahead and exit out of the deck and take time to answer any questions. You can feel free to either unmute and or put it in the chat. So I see we have a question related to where the plan is in EGMS, and I am actually going to punt this over to my colleague, Randy Littleton, to talk about that specifically.
Good morning. Thank you, Danielle. The 23-24 ARAP application will be in fiscal year 24 in EGMS. As Danielle mentioned earlier, there are contact assurance information that you will need to complete. Once that's done, it will be available for you to create. But again, that's in fiscal year 2024.
And there is a question around where or how school systems report any anticipated ESSER 2 balance. And again, I will call on my wonderful colleague, Randy Littleton, to provide that detailed information.
Yeah, so I am assuming the question of reporting any balances, are you referencing any unobligated formula funds or incentive funds that will not be expended? Both of those locations are found in the Achieve application. One of those being on, we have two separate tabs. There's actually a incentive release tab and then a formula obligations tab for the ESSER 2. So both of those are located in the Achieve application. If that wasn't quite the question, just let us know. Thanks.
Okay, great. And I'm going back to the chat, and I just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions. Again, we are happy to stay on through 9:30. And I will just ask my my other colleagues, either Joel and or Leslie, are there any questions that I am missing? Or if anyone has a question they want to unmute and voice it over, we are happy to address it.
I don't see any more, Danielle.
Okay, great. Well, this concludes our call. Again, we will stay on until 9:30 to answer any questions and be as helpful as we can be. And again, we thank you so much for your time and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.